welcome our first guest, Bill Fazio, who spent 20 years in the DA's office, the District Attorney's Office, as a homicide prosecutor. He's currently a practicing criminal defense lawyer. He was narrowly defeated in a race 2 times for the city's District Attorney's Office. I remember that well. But you know, the whole issue of crime is coming back. As we speak this week is a really tragic case of a bicyclist in Ingleside, a woman shot in the head. And what I find disturbing about this is often the crime in the city, the violent crime in the city, is portrayed as gang violence or drug related. Here's a perfect example of that this crime thing is not just in the Bayview and Hunters Point, and sad that there is so much, but it's now outside.
Right.
How do you, as a former prosecutor, look at this?
Well, you know, Art, that's the scariest type of crime to the general public, and the most difficult for the police to prove are random street crime without a motive. There's no obvious suspect in this case. We have no idea what that was all about. It apparently wasn't about drugs. She wasn't a gang member. It wasn't about a jilted lover, at least as far as we know. Those are the kind of things that concern you, make you look over your shoulder when you leave a restaurant and you go back to your car to go home, or even when you park your car in front of your home and you walk to your residence.
The randomness of it.
The randomness. You never know when it's going to happen or why it's happening. So it's a concern. It should be a concern to everybody because they are the most difficult types of crime to deal with by the system.
When you look at the crime now and the crime in the past when it was an issue, like we both watched when Mayor Frank Jordan was elected, is the crime different? Is it how do you view it? Is it different, or is it just more of the same?
Well, it's changed a lot. You know, I was in the DA's office from 1975,
in the homicide, right?
Homicide division from about 1981 during a peak. A lot of crimes involving African Americans on African Americans, particularly involving crack trades and wars that took place in certain areas of the city. And unfortunately, the city kind of compartmentalizes crime. When it takes place in a certain community, it doesn't get the attention that it generally should get. An example is this case, the so-called Yaley case. Whatever happened on New Year's Eve out in you know what I'm talking about.
Let's for our viewers' sake go quickly through that.
Okay, why don't you relate to us?
I don't remember it.
Well, it was basically an incident that allegedly occurred between a fight or a disagreement between some young men from Yale who were out here.
Oh, the Yale situation.
The situation. Okay. Well, the point I'm making there, that happened in a not crime-ridden area of town. Whatever happened is not a serious crime in the sense that somebody's life was in danger, certainly not a pleasant thing to happen. But when you look at the consequences of that crime, somebody had a fractured jaw. Serious enough, granted. But the attention that we've given to that crime is way out of proportion to the kind of attention it should be given when you have people getting killed in San Francisco. And it just, I shouldn't say amused me, but maybe sort of the humor that you develop from being in law enforcement. It amused me to the sense that we're devoting our attention and our resources to investigating that kind of crime. During the same week, two young men were shot down in San Francisco, I think in the Haight-Ashbury district.
But what I'm curious to get your view on is, look, we know the homicide rates are at record highs, and I mean that's something tangible. But as you were prosecuting it, you were a prosecutor. When you, as a citizen right now, are in the city, is it a fabrication of the media? Is it statistics that are not revealing, or is it true that crime is a major problem now in San Francisco? What's your view on it?
I think it's a problem. I think it's a concern. When I ran for district attorney last time, 4 years ago, because 2003, I guess it was, the concern was the homeless situation. That's still a concern. It hasn't changed an awful lot. I don't know if people are just getting, like, well, this is something we have to accept living in the big city, or they're more concerned about street crime. Just yesterday afternoon, my car, my office is on Van Ness Avenue, less than 100 yards from City Hall. Somebody ran by my car, broke the window, and stole my wife's global positioning system device. Right between Hayes and Grove Street, right on Van Ness Avenue in the middle of the afternoon. And, you come out, you don't even bother calling the police because, they're too busy, it's not a high priority. But it's something and I don't want to be in a position of accepting that. I think the citizens are starting to realize something has to be done, and it's got to be done by everybody, from the mayor down to the cops on the street.
I want to get to that in a moment. Yeah, as you know, I had done some research with FBI statistics and found that while everyone was focusing on homicides, it's those 4 categories of violent crimes where we are seeing record highs. And we saw a 20% increase last year. They'll have the results for the second half of 2006 at the end of this year, but it's probably going to be a record high. And that's those kinds of
street crimes.
Street crimes.
Right.
Okay, now, we accept that, and the surveys in the neighborhoods that have been done show that people feel less safe in neighborhoods. Okay, now why? Why is this? Is it the courts? Is it the prosecution rate? It is the arrest rate? Is it the attitude of the board and the mayor, lax attitude towards crime? Everyone's pushing everyone. Not enough cops on the beat walking, they'll find.
Sure.
So everyone's pointing in a different direction. What's the problem?
Well, everybody has their own interests, and I think crime is a social phenomenon that has to be dealt with across everything. I mean, it's a social factor. If people are employed and happy in their occupation, there's likely to be less crime. If there's more police on the street, there's likely to be less crime. If there's prosecutions which are done effectively and timely, there's likely to be less overall crime because it has an impact. But it has to be a combination of everything. As I said a moment ago, from the mayor, who gives us some sort of leadership, hopefully, and direction, to the cop on the street who actually exercises his discretion to determine whether or not the person who just is engaging in inappropriate behavior needs a kick in the rear or really needs to be brought under arrest and into custody, to the district attorney who goes into court. So it's a combination to the social agencies.
But you're making
that
it sound
support
like
those.
there's no one or no... Who grabs a hold of a city when crime is out of control like this, and you have four power sources like you just mentioned? Then who takes control? Who says we're going to have changes?
You're right. What I was getting at, there's no magic bullet, certainly, or pill that's going to solve it, but somebody has to be in charge, and I think ultimately falls on the police department. The police department is seen as law enforcement. When you say law enforcement, you most often not think of the police officer in the street, somebody in blue, man or woman or what have you. And I think the police department in San Francisco, with all due respect to everybody involved, appears, on my experience, and I run into them day in and day out, to be not a happy group of folks. They're demoralized. I don't know if it's because of administrative problems with the chief and the administration of the department or what. I mean, police department officers make pretty good money right now, so that hasn't really been the problem. I think they've got support for the community, generally speaking, and believe it or not, they usually have support in the communities that are most impacted by crime more than they do by some residents in Pacific Heights who really don't have much experience with the cops. Well, but it's the police, I would say.
You mean if Bill Fazio was given a chance to either work the courts, change the mayor, change the police, environment and police chief or whatever, and the laws. The district attorney's office, I meant, that's the fourth one.
Right.
You think of those four, the most change could be made by what? By doing what?
By having the police department work better on the street and ultimately have a closer working relationship with the prosecutor's office.
So what do you say when the police, we've had Gary Delanis on the program, what do you say when they're frustrated, they fill out these long police reports, and it takes a while to fill out a police report, a couple hours. You send it on to the district attorney's office, and they're either diverted into programs, or they're not prosecuted because they don't have the resources, or they can't get an arrest, or they can't get a conviction. What do you do as a police officer?
What you do, I think, is this. You know, as a defense attorney for the last 12 years, having been a DA for 20 years, I've seen a pretty good both sides of the problem. And I've always been a big fan of the district attorney and the police department getting together and working together. And we had some wonderful hopes when we had a new district attorney 3 years ago. Unfortunately, and I'm sure she didn't do it on purpose, obviously. She got off to a bad start with the death penalty case involving the killing of Officer Espinosa. And that still lingers, and the cops and the DA aren't really not on the same page as they should be. So I think in those kind of a situation, the district attorney and representative of the police department, be it the chief or Delanis from the police union, should sit down and say, this is what we need from you. If you give us this is what we will do. You have to understand, on the other hand, that there are social problems such as diversion, which are not necessarily bad. They're good because they take care of first-time offenders if they're used in a proper way. A lot of police officers don't know that because nobody tells them or explains it to them. I remember I had the concept Arthur, a long time ago, of having a district attorney assigned to each of the 11 police stations in San Francisco as a liaison. It's never been done. And it's been done in other communities, and it works because it gives everybody somebody they can talk to. So Delanus, instead of coming on your show and having to complain about this problem that he doesn't know who to talk to, the cops in the actual station could go to their own DA, and their own DA, and that DA could then go to the cops and say, you know what, in this case, it's your problem. We did the right job with what you gave us, and you didn't give us enough information.
I like it. I remember this. I remember when you ran it. It made sense then, and it even makes more sense now. I have to get a little more political here because isn't there, take Mayor Giuliani, for example. Let's take that. That's what I'm looking for. You can set a tone either as a board member on the Board of Supervisors or as a mayor. Does that help?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. And I certainly don't want my friends in the police department to think I'm faulting them.
Yeah, I want to make sure
I've
that
had great relationships with them. But yeah, when a moment ago, you were talking about the one most important thing. I guess I was talking about the street.
That could have almost instantaneous changes.
The police chief, the mayor. I remember when Dianne Feinstein was mayor of San Francisco. She was very proactive, very involved in issues involving the fire department and the police department in a positive way. I remember actually prosecuting a case, and at the time of the arrest, Feinstein was on television with her then police chief, Cornelius Murphy, basically making a statement to the public, assuring them everything was going to be okay, and it helped. And with Con Murphy standing there, he kind of epitomized the police chief in Hollywood's view, and actually was a wonderful person, had great rapport with the troops. And she basically put her finger out and said, you people out there, we're going to find you, and we're going to arrest you, and we're going to prosecute you. Well, they did find him, and I did prosecute him, and it was successful. But she took control and charge. And when you bring up Giuliani in that sense, I think you're right. He or she, the mayor, the chief executive officer of the city and county of San Francisco, makes a statement, and that statement is listened to, and it filters through, and it makes the citizens feel comfortable that something is being done.
What about the attitude? In other words, and now we're getting somewhat into ideology. We don't have a lot of time left, but this whole idea that the city has gone more to the left, including the mayor, means that they tend to look at criminals more as victims of their society rather than this free will that if you do something wrong, there's crime and punishment.
Right.
Do you think this slippage of the mayor's office and the board towards that viewpoint, and we've got a minute left, has contributed to the criminals out there figuring they can get away with murder?
Yeah, no question about it, because they do drive in and take Bart into San Francisco. Our only hope is this, that what they say about a conservative is a liberal who was mugged. If the crime rate continues, there's going to be more conservatives than liberals in San Francisco.
And that's a sad thing, if that's the only case that will allow for the city to wake up. Bill Fazio, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.